It's Monday, April 11th, 2022. You are listening to the Saluki Gamescast. My name is Justin Young, and joining me as usual are Alicia Utecht, Ryan Freels, and OJ Duncan. How's everyone doing?
You know, it's that point in the semester, but we're hanging in there.
Jolly good.
Yeah, I'm doing well.
I feel like it's been that point in the semester for you, Alicia, the last 2 or 3 weeks. So
It's a long point.
Yeah, it has been. But, you know, we're making it through. Mm-hmm. There's 3 weeks left, and one way or another, this too shall pass. You know, it might pass like a kidney stone, but it'll pass.
It's good to hear you're so optimistic about how the rest of your semester might go and everything. How's the last week been? That's good. There was like just blank. Yeah.
So April is really, really busy for me academically and non-academically. So it's been a whirlwind is what it's been. A good whirlwind. I'm in good spirits, but it's still been a whirlwind. I think a lot of people in academia, April is pretty bad.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like April is much worse than, say, November, December. Mm-hmm. Like it hits different because it's the end of the year and everything. So even though it's just another semester, it just feels a lot harsher come April. Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's just kind of jump right into the news, and we're going to do a recap on a few different things that happened this week. But all right, so big news. Kingdom Hearts 4 was announced with a very short trailer. This is... From the trailer, looks very obviously a next generation game. So very much looks like a PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S or X sort of game. Also PC, I would assume. And Sora has lost his big clown shoes.
I'm so sad about that.
Are you a big fan of Sora's shoes?
I just remember, and I don't even remember who did this, but someone tweeted like 3 years ago when they were like, if Sora ever makes it into Smash, I will eat his clown-sized shoes. And now I feel like that person has an excuse to not follow through on that.
So are you a big Kingdom Hearts fan, Alicia?
I'm not saying that I cried when this trailer dropped, but I'm not saying that I didn't either. You know, Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 were huge for me as a kid. Like, they were... I think it was like Final Fantasy 7 and 8, Sonic Heroes, and Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 were the games that my sister and I always came back to and played and replayed and just had an absolute blast with. And so having Kingdom Hearts 4, I know you all here probably remember the whatever it was, 12-year wait between 2 and 3 with all these additional things, and now 4 is coming supposedly in the next couple of years. We'll see if it actually does or if it takes another 15 years again. But I am very excited. This might be the push for me to get a PS5.
So I have a question about this. I played the original Kingdom Hearts. I never played any of the sequels. This question is not about the story because I know nobody understands the story of these games. But, you know, you saying how important this was to you and your sister growing up and everything, so many women I know, this is a big franchise for them. Is it the Disney part of it, or is it something else about the games that really makes it so endearing?
I think there's a combination. I think... on the one hand, you have the Disney aspect for the nostalgia and like, okay, this is what, as a little kid, I was into. And then as you grow older, you know, you start getting into the Final Fantasy games, and so you appreciate all of the little Easter eggs with that. And I think also, like, as complicated as the story is, I also think it's wonderful. And I think they do a really good job of managing an ensemble cast in a way that is really difficult because, you know, you have, at the end of the day, you have very few original characters in the first Kingdom Hearts game. And then as it goes on and it develops more, you get Organization 13 and you get all of that, and you get the Keyblade Masters but I think it did really well for itself in starting off with so few original characters and so many familiar faces that made it easy to get into at the beginning. And then having followed it all along, like, yes, it's complicated, but I could eventually tell you the entire story of Kingdom Hearts. It would take me 48 hours, but...
So when you talk about there being more original characters now, my understanding is that the Final Fantasy characters are basically just gone out of the series at this point. Is that generally true?
Yeah, there were no Final Fantasy characters in Kingdom Hearts 3, which was a real bummer because I think...
Because that was part of the appeal originally, right? It was the mashup of the two franchises.
Yeah, and I really feel like, especially in Kingdom Hearts 2, the Final Fantasy characters, you started to see more of their Final Fantasy character selves. You know, you got Cloud versus Sephiroth, and you had Tifa show up and be chasing after Cloud to get him to stop being such an idiot all the time. And whereas Kingdom Hearts 1, it was really almost more of an Easter egg, I feel like, having those characters. You know, you had Cloud and Squall/Leon and Yuffie and Sid and Aerith, and they were all there in Traverse Town, but they didn't really do stuff like they did in the second one. Mm-hmm. But with all that said, like I said, I'm still really sad to see them not be there. And I know people online are talking about, okay, Sora's getting into his Final Fantasy protagonist stage, and they're talking about potential of seeing maybe some of the Final Fantasy 15 characters in this one. Mm-hmm. I don't know how high my hopes are for that, but...
I mean, that's a horrible thing to happen.
Would you prefer the Final Fantasy Origin characters show up?
No. Bring in Gladiolus. I'm good with Gladiolus. The rest of 15 I can do without.
Yeah, I remember there being a lot of excitement with that first game because, you know, they were bringing in these Final Fantasy characters who had not originally been voice acted. And then they were bringing in, like, pretty good voice acting talent. They were bringing in people like David Boreanaz to do, I think he was Squall, yeah.
Lance Bass to do Sephiroth, I think.
Yeah, like, you know, so they were bringing in, like, notable named actors that you would be familiar with and everything, and to me that was always kind of the joy of that. I know that there's speculation that originally they wanted that to be a Nintendo and Disney mashup and everything, or a Nintendo and Square mashup and everything, and then this is what we ended up with. So to see that kind of peeled away over the years, that's a little disappointing, but I can't exactly claim I'm a huge fan of the series to begin with. So anyone else excited about this?
I'm curious. So I played the first two Kingdom Hearts games. I'm kind of similar to you though, and then like after years later, and by the time 3 came out, I was just so out of touch with what that was. I think for me, like you asked earlier about the appeal of it.
You didn't play Dream Drop Distance and 365 over 2.
I remember one of those had a cool trailer. I think it was. I don't know anything.
It's okay. Nobody can keep all those games straight.
I think I just remember like when it first came out. You know, I was a kid that grew up with Disney films. I was at that point getting into stuff like anime and Japanese popular culture. So I think when Kingdom Hearts first came out, it was like the perfect storm of watching those things merge. And it was just kind of at an interesting like point of a crossroads for me anyway, in terms of like what media I was interested in. So I think that. And I wonder if that was what it was for a lot of people too. But I'd be curious to try it again. I'm kind of scared to go back to the beginning of that though, and replay back to where we are now. And yeah, it just looks like a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're probably onto something with it being a gateway to anime for a lot of people, because I feel like that series came around early 2000s, right? Like 2002 or somewhere in there. And it was a time when, you know, I feel like late 90s was when we got Toonami and them showing anime for the first time, like kind of in sequence on a regular basis on American television. And then you had this game, and it was an easy sort of gateway drug into anime because you had the Disney characters and maybe some familiarity with the Final Fantasy stuff. And then over the length of the series, my understanding is it's gone full anime, like insane, like plot that, that we are going to, well, all anime eventually ends up with we're going to kill God. So I assume that's what's going on. So I don't know. OJ, you're the big Final Fantasy fan. Are you also a fan of these games?
So I played Kingdom Hearts 1, and then I didn't play the rest of them. But we got the complete collection recently after 3 came out, and I was ready to go through them all. But now that there's a 4, I may just want to wait. However, I saw someone saying that like Final Fantasy 3, or not Final Fantasy 3, Kingdom Hearts 3 kind of ended that storyline, and it'll be starting a whole new one. If they're going through the different Final Fantasy worlds rather than Disney worlds, I think that would be fantastic, and I would really, really enjoy playing that. They could do a better job than Stranger of Paradise does, bringing in all the different games and different levels.
Well, and that would be really interesting too, because like we said, the characters were there in the earlier games and then weren't there in 3. So, if say Sora goes to Midgar, do you see Cloud? Do you remember Cloud? Does Cloud remember you?
Right.
Yeah, and especially you already have all those Midgar elements rendered and everything for the Final Fantasy VII remake, so it would make a lot of sense to get some extra use out of those.
Just having this image of like Goofy and Donald at Midgar.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Did you all watch the trailer? Like the trailer ends with Donald and Goofy getting attacked by something or somebody showing up.
Someone who didn't get cured at the right time, probably.
Goofy's just like, this looks like a fun house in Midgar. Don't go in the house, Goofy!
And other big game announcement news, they announced a new Tomb Raider game that's going to run off the brand new Unreal Engine 5. This is going to be separate from the recent trilogy. So Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider, Shadow of the Tomb Raider. The way they talked about this was that this would be taking place later. So that trilogy is very much about a complete reboot of the franchise and was very focused on how Lara Croft becomes the Tomb Raider, and it was very much about her early on, even being uncomfortable with taking a life, which is, kind of goofy compared to the later Tomb Raider games where she is killing everyone, including dinosaurs.
Right.
So, the idea that this sounds like it may be more like the original games, but with a lot of the technology and everything that they developed over that recent trilogy. I'm super excited about this. The Tomb Raider reboot I liked a lot, though I felt it was very Uncharted. Like we're just copying what Uncharted did. Then Rise of the Tomb Raider, I think, is one of the best games of that generation. I think that's a fantastic game. And then Shadow of the Tomb Raider is not that great, but it's not a terrible game. It's still a decent enough game. But those first two, at least, and Crystal Dynamics actually didn't work on Shadow of the Tomb Raider. And they're the ones who are working on this new one. So that, plus using Unreal Engine 5, sounds pretty exciting to me. And I don't know if any of the rest of you have played through that recent trilogy.
No, I haven't. I played a lot of the original ones, but I haven't played the new trilogy.
Well, I would highly recommend it.
After that glowing endorsement, I think I will.
At least the first two, Tomb Raider and Rise of the Tomb Raider. Those two games are completely worth playing through. Shadow of the Tomb Raider, you might want to save your time.
Read the wiki page.
Yeah, I mean, it's not without its merits, but it doesn't work. It feels a lot like, did you play through the Batman Arkham games? And they did one Batman Arkham Origins, which a different team handled, not Rocksteady, who did all the main games. And it feels a lot like that. Like you can tell it's the B team working on this game. It doesn't have that same level of polish and care and everything to it. Let's see. Activision Blizzard. We've been talking about them a lot. Everybody seems to have been talking about them a lot. Here's some actual good news, I guess, on their part. They have converted their QA testers to full-time employees with pay raises. So pay will now start at $20 an hour. They will have access to benefits. I don't know exactly what that means. I would assume, access to health care and other things. This is all kind of in response to Raven Software, one of their development studios, where the QA testers actually went on strike, I believe back in December, and formed the Game Workers Alliance Union. This is still not recognition of that union by Activision Blizzard, but it does seem very clearly in response to the idea that their workers might be unionizing against them. So this seems like very good, positive news. It's been well known in the industry for a while that QA testers are pretty much treated terribly. It's sort of a thankless job where they fire those people as soon as they're done with them and then hire up again when they need it for a new game. If you watch the Apple TV, whatever it is, Apple TV Plus series, Mythic Quest, which is all about a game development studio, they do a pretty good job, I think, of showing how the QA testers are low people on the totem pole and not really given much respect and everything. So, this seems like good news. I mean, out of everything Activision Blizzard has done recently, finally some good news.
Right. I think this is fantastic, and also one of the reasons why I support unions so much. I was the chief steward for the Graduate Assistants United here, the union we have here on campus. And unions have just done so much. So I'm really glad to see, A, that unions are forming for them, and B, that they're responding and paying people more. Maybe if we had QA testers who were being paid more, we would get a lot better games coming out of the gate rather than stuff like Cyberpunk, where it's just horrible right from the beginning. And it takes like months upon months to become playable.
And, I think it's like with any job, there's a certain amount of institutional knowledge that you gain from being at a job for a period of time that when you bring in new people and are trying to train them on the fly, they just don't have. And, I think this idea of like, okay, we're going to have these people on board full time and treat them as full-time employees, that also opens up doors potentially for a lot of those people to move up, which is why a lot of people go into QA testing in the first place. They want to work in video games. Moving on, Sony and Lego, actually the parent company of Lego, but nobody knows who they are, so we'll just say Lego, have both invested separately $1 billion into Epic Games. So a total of $2 billion, $1 billion from Sony, $1 billion from Lego's parent company. This is a lot of money. I mean, Epic Games is a big company and everything, but that's a lot of money. Particularly, I think for the Lego company to be investing that kind of money. Sony makes a whole lot of sense. They want access to Unreal Engine. They want, they certainly have been putting some of their games out onto PC. There's some logic there for that. But yeah, for Lego, that seems like kind of an interesting, we actually have a reason that might be that they're doing this, but that's kind of an interesting development.
That is a lot of money. Like, I can't even fathom $2 billion.
Did you know that they had sold $2 billion worth of little minifigs? Because they have to get that $1 billion from somewhere, right?
Yeah, that is wild.
So we said there was a reason Lego is probably doing this investment. Epic Games and Lego have teamed up and are working on a kid-safe, their words, metaverse project. And they have 3 guiding principles behind this. The first one is to protect children's right to play by making safety and well-being a priority. The second one is to safeguard children's privacy by putting their best interest first. And the third one is to empower children and adults with tools that give them control over their digital experience. I don't know. What do you think about a kid-safe metaverse project?
I'm actually hopeful for this. I was talking to one of my friends a few weeks ago about how, like, kids now, she was talking about specifically seeing, she has a very young cousin who is on TikTok and got sucked into some pretty bad circles. And we were talking about, when we were kids, we had like Club Penguin and Neopets and like online sites that you could go and just be a kid. And it was a generally safe environment. I'm not going to say 100% of the time because nothing is 100% anything, but generally it was a good kid-safe online environment. And so I'm optimistic that if they put their money where their mouth is and make this into something good, this could be a really good thing.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things to know about Lego, I think, too, is that Lego doesn't do toys of like R-rated or M-rated properties, whether that's movies or video games. So it's the reason you don't get a Friday the 13th Lego set. And, when they have moved into video games, like with the whole Lego series, Lego Star Wars, Lego Lord of the Rings, and all those, it's one of the reasons they haven't, touched on to some of the more dark areas, I guess. Like there's no Lego Game of Thrones, for example. But, that would sell. Like, I mean, a lot of people who are buying these Lego sets are adults, because no kid can afford a $200 Lego set, or in the case of the like Millennium Falcon, it's like an $800 Millennium Falcon Lego set.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So, if kids can't buy these, then they're selling to adults. And so you can see that there would be some interest from adults for more adult oriented Lego sets, even if, they're not vulgar in any way, but just more violent, let's say. I don't know what this is going to look like. I assume that this is them trying to replicate the success of Fortnite. That's the closest we have to any sort of metaverse, I think, at the moment. And so I guess that is the hope that they'll be able to do with Lego. And I would assume doing the same thing of licensing characters and bringing them in so that you could have a minifig of Darth Vader, a minifig of all these different people, and it would be an ongoing live service project. But I guess we'll see. But still, kind of excited to see Lego out there doing different things. They also recently signed a deal with 2K Games, and we may have talked about this on the podcast, but they're going to do sports-oriented Lego games, which sounds, kind of interesting. I don't know what all sports you would do with Legos, but my hope is that they do a WWE wrestling game because I just think that would be the funniest with Legos.
Oh, that would be good. Actually, I would play that, actually. I don't like wrestling. I don't typically like Lego games, but I would play wrestling Lego games.
See? It's a good idea. Do that. Ubisoft has abandoned their NFT project in Ghost Recon Breakpoint. They've announced that they are shutting that down and also shutting down development on Ghost Recon Breakpoint, assuming they're going to move on to another Ghost Recon game at some point. But this has been one of the more high-profile, big studio NFT projects, and it seems to have failed spectacularly. This is what every game player seems to be saying. We don't want this. This is going to fail. This seems to be what every developer in the industry is saying. Nobody wants this. It's going to fail. And it has failed pretty terribly. So, I mean, I think that just played out exactly as everyone expected it to. That's the least surprising news on here. Rockstar and Remedy are remaking Max Payne 1 and 2. Any Max Payne fans in here?
No, I was playing Max Payne, and then I got to that baby level where the baby screaming just kept on going and going and going, and it was a horrible level, and I just couldn't finish it.
This is tying into your dislike of ASMR and other specific sounds?
Yeah, absolutely. And it would have been okay if it was a little bit of baby crying, but it was just so much, and you're moving so slowly, and it just keeps on going and going and going. It was just I couldn't deal with it, and I couldn't just turn it down and go through it because it's a part of the level. So, yeah, it was just, I just couldn't take it, so I stopped. I was like, I'm done with this franchise.
I'm picturing the crying baby from, like, Yoshi's Island, the crying Mario baby, but instead it's with Max Payne.
10,000 times worse.
Oh, God.
I really like the Max Payne games. They were really interesting at the time. I think they're difficult to go back to now, just the controls and everything. So, the fact that they're talking about remaking these, not just simply remastering them, I assume that means they're planning to go in and do a little bit extra work, like with the controls and that sort of thing. Max Payne 2 has that great funhouse level. That's like one of the early levels in the game. So, yeah, worth checking out, I think. Alicia, you are part of the problem with this next headline. Or at least that was my understanding, that you had already bought your tickets and everything. But Sonic the Hedgehog 2 opened up this weekend to $71 million, which, let it be said, for a non-Marvel movie is a pretty big opening still, like these days. I know those movies open to 200 million, some crazy figure, but like that's still an insane figure. The Morbius movie opened to like 40 million. So, even the off-brand Marvel movies, this is doing much higher than. It is the highest opening ever for a video game movie.
Would we say that I'm part of the problem then? Is it really a problem?
Well, I don't know. You tell us. You went to see this Saturday?
I did. I saw it Saturday morning, and I really enjoyed it. I think that it does a really good job with the characterization of characters like Tails and Knuckles, especially Knuckles for several years now has really been just dumbed down in a lot of Sonic media.
He's been very like bro eyes, right? He's
super himbo.
You're right, yeah, himbo, that's the right term.
And it's nice to see in this he's not stupid. He's gullible as he's always been, but he's not stupid, which is really nice to see them returning to that. I thought it was a really good family flick, popcorn entertainment, It doesn't have to be Lord of the Rings. And it's nice to see,
that would be weird if it was a Sonic-style Lord of the Rings film, like that epic, 3.5 hours long.
I mean, we had Sonic and the Black Knight, but it's nice to see, it knows what it is, and it doesn't force itself to be more. It doesn't push itself to be super dramatic and super angsty and violent and all that before Shadow the Hedgehog shows up. But I really enjoyed it. I highly recommend it. I would be willing. I don't know if I would go see it again in theaters on my own, but if a friend wanted to go see it, I would go with them and see it again. And I'll definitely be buying it when it comes out on DVD and Blu-ray and all that.
And I think part of this is the power of listening to fans, because for the first one, when they listened and they changed it completely, like what Sonic looked like, they made fans for life who may not have even been Sonic fans before. I've never been a huge fan of the Sonic world, but after watching that first movie, after seeing what they did, I really enjoyed it, and I'm gonna go see this in the theaters. So,
well, and like you said, when I remember when they did that and that first trailer dropped, and we all mocked it to Kingdom Come,
yeah,
rightfully so. Right. And then when they were like, okay, we're gonna reevaluate and we're gonna redo this, I remember everyone on the internet was like, even if it's a terrible movie, we need to go and give it money because they actually listened to us, and we need to show them through the way they care about, which is through the wallet.
Capitalism.
Yeah.
Yep.
That is 100% why I went and saw the first one.
Yeah.
But I think the secret of that first movie is that was already a good movie. All they did was change the design of Sonic in it, right? They didn't go and change the plot or anything because of that reaction, or at least not significantly. They may have changed a line of dialogue or something, who knows. But they didn't change anything significant other than the design of Sonic. So they already had a pretty good movie. I tease you about being part of the problem, but like I said, I liked that first movie. I thought it was a pretty good family movie. I don't think it's a great movie, but it
doesn't have to be.
It's a really solid family movie, and it's the sort of thing you take the kids to on a Saturday to entertain them and everything. And certainly it was better than most of the video game movies that I've seen over the years. I'm thinking of Prince of Persia, and some of these other ones. And so, like the fact that they listened to the fans, I think, is what made it into such a huge success. Because I think people would have liked it regardless.
Yeah.
Even if that controversy had not occurred and everything. And then I think there was so much goodwill because so many of those people, I think, were like you, OJ. They wanted to go like support them for being supportive of the fans. And then after they saw the movie, they were like, okay, well, that was actually okay. That was, or even that was pretty good. And then those fans came back, right, for this new one.
Well, I think if they hadn't done the redesign, like people who aren't into video games and, okay, I'm just going to bring my kids to a movie on Saturday, I think that like those people would have enjoyed it, but there would have been such a strong divide between fans of the video games and the cartoons and all that and people who just saw this movie. And I think we would have had some really ugly, maybe not to the extent of being a fan war, but we would have definitely had some ugly fan interactions with like making fun of the people who enjoyed the movie with the bad design. And so in doing this, they were able to also not only bring in fans who, like OJ said, maybe weren't really into Sonic, but just wanted to support the fact that they actually listened to the fans, but they were also able to keep a unified Sonic fan base, which was really cool.
And that fan base is already fractured to some degree for a whole variety of reasons. But I mean, the Sonic that is in most media today is actually not the original Sonic. So, the original Sonic is short and chubby, and, they redid him and made him more athletic, I guess, with Sonic 3, I believe, where they did that. And, there's part of me that really likes the short and chubby Sonic. I think he's cute and everything. He looks more animal-like and everything. So some people already have their desires for what Sonic should look like. And that's not even touching on, the like really diehard fans and everything who have their very, very strong opinions on that. But Ryan, you said you were thinking of going to see this?
Yeah, so I grew up as a Mario, like Donkey Kong, Nintendo kid. So I don't have much of a connection to the Sonic stuff. But I mean, I think his stuff looks aesthetically cool, but I never really got into video games or anything. But I might give this a look because I appreciate what they're doing. Plus, they've given fans Idris Elba as Knuckles, and we're getting Chris Pratt as Mario.
Idris Elba is like inspired casting. Chris Pratt is obnoxious
the opposite.
casting.
It's like, he's famous, right? Get him to do Mario.
Broke, Chris Pratt as Mario. Woke, Idris Elba as Knuckles.
That's a motto to put on a shirt.
That'll be on Fox News later.
That could be the episode title. I'm voting that already.
They'll be playing this clip out of the podcast. And this is what they're teaching your kids at
Damn
universities.
liberals against Chris Pratt.
And some bad news. PlayStation 3 and Vita games, some of the digital games, so ones that you have bought digitally through the storefront, have stopped working for some people. They've essentially expired, which, when you buy a game, you're not buying it for a set amount of time. You're buying it theoretically forever. This, of course, kind of ties into Sony's desire to shut down those stores. So maybe this is an issue and they're going to have to renew these licenses. This is apparently not everyone. It isn't affecting everyone. It is affecting some people with some of their games. So theoretically, Sony will fix this soon. That does it for the news. We had a pretty big event this past Thursday and Friday, Playing for Pets. So just as a wrap up on that, that was our 24-hour video game marathon that happened on April 7th and 8th, last Thursday and Friday. We were raising funds for St. Francis Care. We raised over $600 for St. Francis Care. Also had several donations of bag, cat, and dog food. All of you were there. And so I just thought I would give a chance to maybe talk about it and reactions and thoughts and everything to it. One of the things that we learned was that Alicia ruins everything. I feel like that's an important lesson to come away with.
I did put it on record that I deserve to be roasted for this.
So what happened was we were playing a game, and Alicia somehow hit a combination of buttons to start updating a Switch controller in the middle of a game. Like right in the middle of a game.
It wasn't in the middle of we were playing Mario Kart, and it wasn't in the middle of a race, at least.
Oh, I thought it was in the middle of the race.
No, it was at the beginning of the race.
The race had started.
It had not.
Yes. No, because it has to be started for you to pause it and go into that
well, maybe
screen.
that's how it got screwed up then, because it hadn't started yet, and I was trying to pause, and it hadn't started.
But
I didn't ruin it that badly.
You ruined it. You ruined the whole day. That was the highlight of day one.
I would say the highlight of day one was after Mario Kart, we switched to Jackbox games for a while. And one of the lists, what was it, like 3 words to sum up the day? And of, the
3 lessons you learned today.
3 lessons you learned today. And of, the 10 people in the room, of course the 2 people who got to fill in answers for that were our very own OJ and Justin. And I knew immediately it was them because they're the only ones there who knew how to spell my name. And OJ, in all his greatness of being my mentor this year, put Alicia updates controller. And Justin had a couple of others, but his very first one was Alicia ruins everything.
Today on Behind the Scenes, Behind the Music, Saluki Gamecast, we talk about how Alicia ruined everything for everybody. Ever since she updated that controller during the game, it just put a rift between all of us.
There was a better moment on day 2, though. So we had one of the people that was involved was sitting in that small chair, he had offered me the chair, and I said, no, I don't like that chair. I feel like I'm going to fall over. So he sat in that chair, and then in the middle of a game, he jumped back and then fell over in the chair on screen, and it was great. It was a highlight of day 2.
Yeah, that was a pretty great moment and everything. And I think the problem is that chair swivels, but it doesn't actually rock.
Yeah.
So you feel like it should rock because it looks sort of like a rocking chair, but it only actually swivels around. All 3 of you came and stayed for a while throughout, different times throughout the day. Not always at the same times, but we did have at least a few times where at least 3 of us were there together and overlapped. Overall, we had a huge number of people show up from around campus and everything. So, that was really exciting and fun. Everybody seemed to have a good time playing different games. Sandy was the director of our school. I guess she's chair and director. I never know exactly how to address her now.
Currently chair, future director.
But she was, I think, completely won over by Overcooked, which she had never played before. And was talking very positively about that afterwards. I know, OJ, you said that being part of this charity event was costing you a whole lot of money because you kept adding games that you wanted to buy when you got home.
Yes, I have a huge list now that I'm waiting to be able to afford because I know I'm not going to have time to play all of them at home, but I have the list for when I'm like, oh, hey, there's a sale, or oh, hey, there's a Humble Bundle sale type thing. Then I'll be able to pick them up. But there was just so many games that were good. However, that one racing game, Grip, I think, maybe?
Yeah, Grip.
It was just horrible. That's one of the worst games I've ever played, honestly.
Yeah, that game works a lot better in 1 player. Like 4 player, it was just a mess to be able to see where anyone was going and everything. So, yeah, that was very disappointing. But lots of other kind of fun, different experiences and everything. So thank you to all 3 of you for coming out and supporting that. And
thank you for putting it on, Justin, because that was a lot of fun. It was really great being able to just kind of show up casually, have snacks, play games that I don't own, and maybe some that I've never heard of, and confirm some that I will never get, like the Nintendo knockoff or the Nickelodeon knockoff of Super Smash Bros.
Which is a great game.
Yeah, that's fun. I mean, you want a game where you can play as Garfield. I feel like Garfield should be a character in every game.
Maybe in the future he can be voiced by Chris Pratt in the game.
That's the promise of the metaverse, right? Chris Pratt, Garfield everywhere.
God, help us.
Don't give them ideas, Ryan.
Yeah, everybody that I talked to who was a part of it said they really had a good time. It was just really fun, especially not everybody can always get together with a bunch of people and play these like group games, and being able to play with a diverse group of people and making friends along the way is pretty awesome. Because some of my classmates that I've never really talked to throughout the semester, I was talking to and playing games with, and so it was really fun.
Yeah, and if you want to check out some of that, you can go to salukigames.com. It's actually currently up on our YouTube channel, so both days, the full stream and everything. That will be posted onto the website as well, but if you want to see it right now, it's currently up there. But who knows, by the time this is actually posted, maybe it'll actually be up on the website. But you can go to salukigames.com, and the hope is to do more of those style of events, not only playing for pets, but more maybe smaller events and everything along the way, getting more people involved with games and kind of making that more accessible to different people. So that's the hope, at least. But again, thank you for everyone who donated. Really made it a cool event, and there is certainly desire to, I think, do it again in the future. So we've talked about all of our news. Let's talk about what you've been playing. Alicia, what have you been playing?
Well, this is going to really come as a shock to you all, but I'm about to blow your minds. I didn't just play Pokemon and Kirby.
Lies.
But we know that you play Nickelodeon All-Star Smash.
Your new favorite.
And that
gosh.
you update controllers in the games as well. Is there an update controller simulator you played?
No, I went home and had a tournament on
Somebody
real
will-
Super Smash Bros.
Somebody will make that on Steam. Okay, so you played some Smash Brothers?
I played real Super Smash Bros. And I did regain my honor playing as Snowball Kirby, as I always do, and demolished everyone.
Nice.
So
Nice. Good
very
job.
happy with that. And then, of course, more Pokemon and Kirby. As I finally got back. I was kind of taking a break from Pokemon Sword to play Legends Arceus, but the other night I was like, I am this close to beating the story mode. I should really just go back and do that. So now I'm about to go into the champion fight, which I know is going to be disturbed by Chairman Rose.
And Kirby, are you still enjoying it as you're playing?
I am, yeah. I think I talked about this before, but I think one of the really big things for me is being able to play it co-op. I'm really having a blast with that. It's a lot of my gaming history when I play with other people has really been more of like, okay, like when I was growing up, my sister would play one game and I would sit there on the couch next to her and we would talk during it and all that, but she was the one playing and then I would be the one playing.
Right.
So it's nice being able to have an actual co-op game that's not just a battle game and being able to actually progress through the story together.
All right. Ryan, what have you been playing?
Okay, so aside from what we played, at the Playing for Pets wrap-up, at Playing for Pets, I have been continuing on Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. So I've played through the first 2 episodes so far. There's 5 episodes overall, and I don't know if there's going to be more in this one or not, but anyway, the first one is just, I kind of talked about this earlier, but it's just focusing on the courtroom part of the game.
Right.
Where there's the visual novel aspect of like the characters exchanging, like, talking to each other. And then, you do have like the other interactive things where you interact with the evidence, look over it, figure out what evidence to select as evident, for what particular question's being brought up. Or what evidence best for furthering your argument at that moment. And then the second one, episode still does some of that stuff too. You still have to like select evidence at appropriate times and show it at appropriate times, but you're also, this is more the point and click detective work side of the game.
Going out and investigating.
And finding different stuff and like collecting evidence. And so I wonder if and I finished that up one, and I wonder if like after that it's going to be more of a combination of those two. I'm So I'm looking forward to figuring that out. I mean, I'm sure I could find that out if I just look it up online, but I'll find that out, or just myself playing the third game, and I'm looking forward to that. Also, I do really love the storytelling in these games, and so a reviewer I've brought up sometimes, Super Eyepatch Wolf, he talks about how the game does go a little bit into class issues too. Mm-hmm. You see that definitely in the first one, and you see that really big time in the second episode. And I really appreciate that they do think about class issues in these games. And I like that there's some characters that are just jerks, like a couple, but most of the characters are at some level empathetic. You would, even if you don't think you're going to like someone, you find yourself in some sense kind of emotionally rooting for somebody at some point. And the second episode kind of came as close as any game has ever to making me, almost making me cry at points. It was really hugging on the heartstrings there. So I'm really appreciating and loving these games. I'm looking forward to finishing them and then moving on to the original Phoenix Wright games.
Yeah, like I said last week, I think, I haven't played these new games, but I have played the original Phoenix Wright, or at least some of them. And yeah, what you're saying sounds, spot on for how those games were and everything. And part of the appeal of those games, right? That they're sort of more adult, but without being really adult games.
Yeah.
And they make you feel like, okay, well, this is serious enough, but it's also sanitized enough that a little kid could play it. But they're just fantastic games. They feel really good, and you never feel completely overwhelmed or frustrated. Or that was my experience, at least. And so, yeah, I mean, I can't recommend the original Phoenix Wright games enough to anyone.
And aesthetically, I just also want to add, the character designs in this are great. I think I said that last time, and, the same guy I just quoted a moment ago said that, good character design tells you information about the characters, and this is just a great example of a video game that does that, because I'm not going to try to get spoiler or anything, but just one character, for example, the idea is that she looks very sweet and sophisticated, she's a sophisticated British woman, but you actually find out she's a very wicked person. Mm-hmm. And I think the detail of her having a hat that's an actual swan, which are known for being beautiful creatures, but also and I know this because of an interview with the person that played the Bride of Frankenstein. And Bride of Frankenstein, Elsa Lancaster, said they're actually very vicious, vulgar creatures that are very mean-spirited. So I think that's just having that swan hat is just a really smart way of saying she's going to look really nice, but then when you get to know her, she's very evil. So
they're sort of like geese in that, right?
Yeah.
Geese look very pretty from afar, but as soon as a goose gets near you, you're running for your life.
Oh God, Northern Illinois University flashbacks.
All right, OJ, what have you been playing?
So I've been playing mostly the same stuff I've been talking about the past few weeks. Castlevania Harmony of Despair. I'm playing Strangers of Paradise Chaos Mode. And then also I bought Kirby in the Forgotten Land and started playing it. I got through the first area last night. And then also the idle games that I've been playing that I talked about last week. Did anyone else have a chance to check those out?
I have not yet.
Okay.
I have not yet. I plan to, though.
Okay. Yeah, they're really fun. So I haven't really had a whole lot of new stuff. I really, really, really am enjoying Kirby in the Forgotten Land, though. It's even better than the demo, playing through it. So I'm really, really happy about that.
I was going to start the idle game, but then Alicia took my phone and updated it while I was on
It's one of those iOS updates that takes 8 hours to do.
This is never going to go away, is it?
Never.
No.
Might as well make it your dissertation now.
Updating controllers. That's the reason I won't have it done. I was updating the controller.
Yeah, and then aside from that, there was some of the games I really liked at playing for pets was the Tricky Towers. Is that what
Yep,
yeah, Tricky Towers, which is like Tetris on a whole new level. I think was pretty awesome. And
it's Tetris with physics.
Yeah, and I can't remember there was another game that I really liked that I can't remember. I guess you can edit that out because I don't remember and it's not coming to me. But
That's okay. We are leaving it in.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. But yeah, so I've just been going through a lot of games. I But again, I'm gonna mention that Harmony of Despair really needs to have the DLC added to the PlayStation Now, because especially if PS3 games are not working, that's the only way to get the DLC for PlayStation people now. So I really, really hope that they can fix that and or add the DLC to the PS Now.
Yeah, and that's a game that's only available for that and the Xbox 360.
Yeah.
And it's one of those games, if somebody doesn't port it over or they don't get backwards compatibility working, that game's just lost forever.
Yeah. And the DLC levels were really, really well done. So it'd be a shame to have them gone.
So I've been super busy with playing for pets. I'm sure you can't imagine. I was up here at campus till like 9 o'clock on Wednesday night, trying to get things set up and working. And then past 8 o'clock on Thursday and Friday night, just because that's when we were going to. So I haven't had a lot of time to play games outside of playing for pets, and most of those games I at least had played before and was familiar with to one level or another. I did play a little bit of Tunic. I think maybe last week I said I was interested in starting that game. I did manage to start and play just the briefest bit of the intro. Tunic is a sort of 3/4 overhead perspective Zelda-like. Or at least that's what it feels like when you begin. It feels like a cute little Zelda game. You're a little fox wearing a little tunic, a little green tunic. In fact, that looks an awful lot like Link. Mm-hmm. And you are going through the levels, and it's sort of an interconnected world and everything that you're exploring. And then the combat is a little bit more complicated than Zelda. I've heard it compared to the Souls games, and I think there's some truth to that, but it's still much more accessible than your average, Dark Souls game. But the big draw to that game, which I haven't gotten to a whole lot of it yet, are the secrets. And it is a game just riddled with secrets.
But are they secrets to everybody?
Not entirely. But I'm really excited to get more into that game and play it. I think it's, to me, and from what I have heard from various people, is maybe a contender against Elden Ring for the best game of the first half of the year. And I think it's a more accessible version of that, right? So Elden Ring, we know, is going to push a lot of people away. Mm-hmm. I think this game is more accessible, but figuring out some of those puzzles and everything might be so frustrating as to push some people away. So when I know more, I've played more, I'll talk more about it. But so far, liking what I've played. So next is our big question of the week, which is, which video game side character most deserves their own game? So when I came up with this question, I was thinking, like how Yoshi has gotten his own game and Toad has gotten his own game. These sort of side characters that aren't the star of the franchise and everything. Their name is not on the box. Which one of those characters do you think is most deserving of getting their own game? And Ryan, we'll start with you.
Okay, so I got so many. Okay, I think my first is, and I mean, I guess they started out as animated characters, but they are in the games now. Jesse, James, and Meowth of Team Rocket. Go ahead and do that Team Rocket Pokemon game. And aside from you could make it a more complicated one in terms of the fighting mechanics. I think that would be cool. And you could have different storylines and different possible ends for how you choose to play. I think it would be cool if you could play it more as a straight up villain. You could also maybe do a redemption game, or maybe some stuff in between that. And maybe you also find out more about the dark underbelly of the Pokemon world. Why is Professor Oak really a legitimate professor? Why does he send 10-year-olds out to do his bidding? Maybe he survives off
You're
the work
a grad
of other
assistant.
people.
You know why.
No further comments. Anyway, but anyway, yeah, I think that could be like really cool. And maybe like the characters are good at different things. Like maybe like aside from doing poke battles, like maybe Jesse's like good at like interacting with people in Team Rocket. Maybe James is good at interacting with people outside of Team Rocket. Maybe Meowth is better at interacting with Pokemon. And depending on maybe who you use more, focus on more, can also affect the ending of the game or something. I don't know. That's what I was toying with. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a cool idea to like take the villains of the Pokemon series and like make an entire game around them. And they're not always the villains, so like they're kind of anti-heroes to some degree, depending on the storyline.
All right.
And so it seems like you could do something kind of interesting and fun with that. Yeah, I could completely see a Team Rocket Pokemon game. Alicia, would you buy a Team Rocket Pokemon game?
I would 100% buy it. I've seen mods where people do like a Team Rocket mod of different Pokemon games. Like the one I've watched was for Crystal version, where after each Pokemon battle against a trainer, your next battle you had that trainer's Pokemon, so you stole their Pokemon at the end of the battle. But I would also really love to see something where you go into the underbelly of Team Rocket, and yeah, I think that would be a lot of fun. I would buy that. 10 out of 10.
All right. Alicia, which side character would you like to see get their own game?
Realistically, I'm going to throw back to last week and say Julius Belmont for Castlevania Aria of Sorrow. I still want that War of 1999 game. Selfishly, I'm going to say Rufus Shinra from Final Fantasy VII, just because he is one of my all-time favorite characters. And while we did get a side game for the Turks in Before Crisis, which is finally coming to the US, and I'm so hyped, I can't wait. But I would also just love to see more of Rufus. You know, you find in Before Crisis, he's already doing some pretty shady stuff. And I would love to see more of like how he goes about that, how he gets around the company to do those things, you know. There's a lot of debate on like how much does he actually buy into what he's doing, like post the original game. Does he actually redeem himself, or is he still just a cold-hearted SOB? And so I would love a Rufus Shinra game.
That's an interesting one. That's not one I would have thought of offhand. I would have thought of like Red 13?
Red 13.
Yeah,
I would realistically go for a game for any character from Final Fantasy VII, but
I want him to get his own game, but it's like 10 cats.
I was thinking Red 13 dating simulator.
That also works.
We do see that he has cubs, so
Yeah, I mean the ending, right? Like he does procreate, so tell us the story in between there. How does he?
we do actually get a little peek at his love story in Before Crisis. I'm just saying.
Okay, well, I have not played Before Crisis, so that might be motivation to do so. OJ, which side character would you pick?
So mine also comes from Final Fantasy, but it's somebody who kind of spans through most of the games. I think Sid, Biggs, and Wedge are always small characters, and all of them from, I think 2 on, might be 3 on, I can't remember. But, you know, Biggs and Wedge and then Sid are always small characters, although they might have a big impact on the plot for a lot of games. So I'd like to see them, because they bring all the games together, if they did some type of Strangers of Paradise with them, except made it better, then, you know, it could bring all of the games. They could have different levels between each of the games that they've been in. Like somehow they're going between the different like universes and playing a big part.
Just imagine Kingdom Hearts 4, Sora shows up at one world, runs into Sid, Biggs, and Wedge, and then the next world he's like, Sid, Biggs, Wedge, and they're like, who are you?
and maybe instead of like the Final Fantasy Sid, it can be the one from Toy Story.
I feel like you could do a Quantum Leap style game with them.
That would be
That would be
fantastic.
amazing.
Where they are leaping into the different Final Fantasy worlds, and they are different characters in each one, but like they retain their memories, and they know that like they have to set right the games. And in order to set them right, because there's a big overarching plot where, chaos has set all of time out of whack. Yeah. And they're having to jump into all these different games and fix them. And that would be fun. That would be like a very loving way to go back and relive some of those memories of those games, but at the same time, give it a relevant reason that you're doing so.
Yeah. That could be how he survives the dropping himself down into the crater with a bomb.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He just kind of teleported to the next area. He
There
Sam
you go.
Becketed out.
They are supposed to be doing like a Quantum Leap reboot. So,
Interesting.
Starring Chris Pratt.
I'm actually very mad at Quantum Leap because it ended with, he never went home. So if they could, in a reboot, bring him home at some point, I think it would be worth it. Because we don't know, did he go on forever? Or did he just somehow pass away?
Well, I think that's how it ends, right? It says he never went home.
Returned home.
Yeah. So, sorry, spoiling a 35-year-old television show for anyone listening.
Damn it! Now there's no point in watching.
It's just like Mega Man and Mega Man Legends. They never bring him home.
Too soon.
That was cruel, Alicia.
You do.
I'm sorry, my brain was on updating controller mode.
Sid could just go through different universes and update controllers.
So my pick is Waluigi. And I think we've kind of touched on this before. Definitely him getting his own movie. But I feel like Waluigi at this point needs his own video game. Everyone else has had their own video game. Toad, Luigi, Princess, Wario. I don't think there's a mainline Mario character who really hasn't. Rosalina, I guess, but she's fairly new. But Waluigi needs his own game. And, what sort of game that is, I think it should be something like a Sly Cooper style game where you're breaking in and stealing things. So maybe you're breaking into Peach's castle and stealing things. You're breaking into Mario and Luigi's house and stealing things. To me, that would be a lot of fun, and it would give a chance to actually give Waluigi some more personality and more reason to exist within the Mario universe. They've done a great job with that with Toad and the what are they called, treasure tracker games, and those are fantastic games. And so I know Nintendo is up to this, and it would just be a whole lot of fun to be able to play a game featuring everybody's least favorite Mario character.
You know what I would like to see? If they did Smash Brothers, but Waluigi was playing every character in it. So like a Waluigi Pikachu and a Waluigi Peach, just playing all of the characters. I think that would be fantastic.
Is this Waluigi has organized this tournament and he's advertised it as all these other characters will be there, and then nobody shows up because they hate him? So he has to pretend he's all the other characters because people have paid for their tickets in advance.
Waluigi controls Master Hand and Crazy Hand.
He has for when he's fighting himself, he has Waluigi-shaped mannequins dressed up as the other characters.
Yeah, because I feel like with Master Hand, you would see him backstage, and he would be in a VR setup and everything, trying to control it.
Or he'd just have a camera by his hands.
Just an extreme close up of his hands,
Fighting little action figures, which would be a good throwback.
Well, they've got the little toys, right? The little statues that you collect in those games. So he could be using those. Yeah, I think the goofier, the stupider, the better for a Waluigi game. He has to be a total loser, right? He has to be sort of pathetic, so pathetic that he's kind of endearing to you and everything. So, I'd love to see a Waluigi game.
He's just out of his fifth divorce, and
No, then you're getting into the whole sad dad motif and everything.
that's what I was going for.
Get that for the Nitty Gritty origin story movie.
Yeah, that's getting into goofy movie territory. Then you're running into a whole crossover with Kingdom Hearts and Waluigi. Nobody needs that.
Waluigi crosses over with everything.
He is the metaverse. Actually, I guess Kirby's the metaverse according to Smash Brothers, right?
Yeah.
He's the one character that survives and has to set everything right. So, so that does it for this week's show. Thank you to Alicia, Ryan, and OJ, as always, for joining me. And thank you for everyone who tuned in and listened. If you have questions, thoughts, comments, you can email those to, we'll just give you my email address, justin.young@siu.edu. So as Alicia said, if you want to yell at somebody, you can send that to me. If you want to yell at Ryan, you can also send that to me. I will pass it along to him. If you want to tell us how Alicia has ruined your day at some point in the past, you can also email that to me. We will definitely read those on the next episode if you send those in. So if you are Alicia's mom or sister or boyfriend or someone else, definitely send those in. Basically anyone who knows Alicia, and you have a story of how she has ruined your day.
I'm going to be emailing you just an episode.
Okay, well, yeah, you two share an office, so I'm sure you have some stories of how she's ruined your day.
Yeah, she keeps showing up at the end of the office hours and just keeping me here all day.
Yeah.
Keeps updating my stuff, my controllers, my phone.
Before she leaves and I come into the office, she sets the computer to update, and then I can't use it during my office hours.
Takes my lunch money.
So thank you for everyone who tuned in. Again, check out all the stuff with Playing for Pets on salukigames.com, and we'll be back next week with a new episode.